So it's a very simple formula because ethics builds trust. Trust inspires loyalty. Loyalty generates passion. And passion drives productivity. The idea is to train ourselves to have a mindset where we don't look at things in black and white. We're not saying it has to be either this way or that way, but rather let's work with the nuances and the complexity and see both sides. If you don't see both sides of an issue, you can't possibly get to anything that resembles an equitable solution.
Welcome back to another episode of the Who You Know Show podcast, where what you know is important, but who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. My name is Trevor Houston, and on this show, you'll learn the strategy, grit, and mindset it takes to overcome obstacles so you can level up in your career, recover your cash flow, and live the life of purpose that God intended for you. Don't forget to look at the mic drop moments time-stamped in the show notes below. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pay it forward, subscribe, and leave an honest review so we can improve. Thanks for listening. My name is Trevor Houston, and please enjoy this episode of the Who You Know Show.
The director of Ethical Imperatives, LLC, working with leaders to create a culture of ethics that builds trust, sparks initiative, and inspires passion. He's a keynote and TEDx speaker, trainer, coach, a community rabbi, as well as a repentant hitchhiker.
And don't forget ethics ninja.
A former newspaper columnist, retired high school teacher, and he's all the way from St. Louis. So welcome, everybody. Yonason to the house.
And I'm only 25 years old.
Okay, so I just got to know. Hold up. Repentant hitchhiker. Tell me about that. I got to know. Talk to me.
For some reason, everybody wants to hear about that. When we were young, most of us did things that in hindsight, maybe were not so wise. And I graduated from college with a degree in English that also might not have been so wise. What was I going to do with a degree? I went hitchhiking cross country, then crossed the Atlantic, went backpacking across Europe for about half a year. And I happened to be in Israel. And
wow.
That's where I connected with my Jewish roots.
Wow.
Changed the whole direction of my life. I lived there for 9 years, met my wife, had our first 2 kids, became an Orthodox rabbi, and then embarked on my career teaching high school for 23 years. 1 year in Budapest, Hungary, 2 years in Atlanta, Georgia, and 20 years in St. Louis, where I am now. And I retired in 2016, and that's when I started my speaking and consulting business, teaching professionals and business leaders why good ethics is good business.
Okay, so you're an author, a speaker, an instructor, TEDx speaker, so you've done it all. But let me ask you this. Were you ever afraid to speak? Was there ever a position or time in your life where you had a fear of it? Or did this just come naturally for you and you're just crushing it the whole time?
It's actually quite interesting. It's remarkable how many speakers are introverts. If you put me in a cocktail party, I want to slide under the table and disappear. Put me on a stage in front of 1,000 people, I'm fine.
Whoa.
Wow.
Why is that? Tell me.
I don't know what it is. It's the structure. It's the sort of familiarity or the sense of, I know what I'm doing. If you get up on stage and you don't know what you're going to say, you got a problem. If you have a message, then you have some articulation. It's a buzz. And you communicate information to people that's useful to them, and they engage you, and they come away with something. There is no greater feeling there.
That is true.
And so part of it, because I've been in performing arts for a long time, so I really don't have a big fear of
you were Peter Pan, right?
In large groups. But I think for Trevor, to your question, I think a lot of it is too, and maybe you can affirm this, is that it's much less personal when you're up in front of a large crowd versus just right in somebody's face. So there's a lot less judgment that you get, I think, from that.
You know what's funny is like small crowds, like if it was, let's say, 15 people up close and personal, right? That can actually be intimidating more than 1,000 people,
yeah, very
right?
much, yep.
1,000 is just like a sea and there's an energy to it, but like 15 will pick you apart. 15 people will pick you apart.
Keep in mind, I walked into a room full of teenagers 6 times a day for 23 years.
Yeah,
that'll sharpen you up real quick. That's why I was curious if you'd had a fear, because it's the number one fear in the world people have is public speaking, and you obviously do that very well. So, okay, you're also an author. When's the first time that you wrote a book? Because you've written many books, correct?
Yeah, I've got my 6th book just came out last month.
6 books.
Wow.
It's a published book. I've got a few that haven't published.
Oh, his book's got books.
Right.
He's got baby books. Wow. Okay. When was the first time you wrote a book?
Oh gosh, the first published book was, I think, 2010.
Okay.
I was teaching Jewish high school and Jewish history. So after a while, my curriculum just turned into a book. So I ended up with 500 pages on Jewish history and philosophy.
Okay.
Not something I used terribly much in my professional career. But what I have done is taken that accumulated wisdom of 3,000 years and applied it to our personal professional lives, because we have all of these brilliant figures in history and tradition that figured things out long before we came along. And what we have to do is we have to update the language. We have to translate their ancient wisdom into the modern world. And that's what I try to bring to the marketplace.
I like that. That's powerful because we've talked about that before. That's similar to what Pastor Joel does. You're just taking some proven methodologies and just translating it into the modern world. So I love that.
Yeah, and that's really where the whole idea of ethics comes from, because ethics means looking beyond ourselves, recognizing the impact that our actions have on the world around us. So it's a very simple formula, because ethics builds trust. Trust inspires loyalty. Loyalty generates passion. And passion drives productivity.
Okay, say it again. You had a formula there. You said ethics builds trust. Yeah. Trust builds relationships.
Trust inspires loyalty.
Okay. Right. Keep going.
Loyalty, passion.
Generates passion.
And passion drives productivity.
With ethics, as if you have a good ethical business, the rest is going to follow. So I like that. And it's just really do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
It's the natural outcome. And we live in a culture that tries to convince us that we have to choose between being good and being successful. That's a poisonous misconception. Everything is about relationship.
No, you don't have to choose between an ethical business and a profitable business. I think that's a problem that people are like, oh, I got to be shiesty to get.
I think our nature, right? Part of our human nature is, what can I get away with?
Yeah.
What corners can I cut in order to get ahead?
Nowadays, just throw this out there. It's got to be pretty tough, actually. It's probably harder to be unethical and be good at it. You got to be really good to get away with stuff nowadays. That's what I'm trying to say. You got to be really good because you're always on film, on camera, every corner you go to, it doesn't matter. And so I think authenticity always wins. If you're authentic and you're genuine and you have good code of ethic, you're going to win.
And that's a great point, Trevor. And it baffles me that you hear again and again these scandals of people who do such incredibly stupid things on camera. Haven't you figured out by now that somebody's always recording?
Yep.
And it's just self-interest and self-preservation.
Yeah, that's right. So I have a question. Ethics and integrity, the same or slightly different in scope?
It's interesting. The word integrity comes from the word integer. And what's integer? It's something that's whole. And so you can't have integrity part-time. You can't have integrity at work or at home and not at work. It's a package deal. And it goes back to what we were just talking about. We're always being watched. There's always someone who's
Sometimes
paying
I
attention to what we're
feel
doing.
like somebody's watching me.
Keep your day job.
No?
Yeah, day
You
job.
don't like that?
Day job. It's a good song, but day
That's
job.
good. That's a great point, though. I like that relating that to whole, right? Full-time. You have to be wholly on board with the ethics, right? With the idea of being ethical, because that's it. If you're ethical part of the time and not the rest, or the other part of the time, like, you really aren't ethical, because it's about doing what's right.
It's about doing what's right.
And if you're a boss and you want your people to be committed to your vision and to your mission, then you better show them that you're setting standards for yourself. And if you're an employee and you want to be recognized and appreciated, then you have to be on board with the mission of the company that you join and commit yourself to it. And one part of it's not going to work without the other. If there isn't a sense of partnership, then you're not going to have a successful enterprise. And partnership only happens when each party respects and appreciates the other and the contribution that they're making together.
So I like that. I'm curious because you're in the business of helping train companies this ethics formula. Is that a tough gig? Because I'm just picturing as a company to admit that you have a problem and to come seek out guidance from a guy like you. Like, maybe I'm completely wrong. I could be completely off base, and maybe, is it a tough deal?
It can be a tough sell. As another speaker in the industry said to me, people think either they don't need it or it's too late.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And that's a problem. The idea is, if you recognize that situations are complicated. I mean, we've got this horrible expression in business called soft skills. It's a horrible expression because it goes, again, to the core of relationship. And so if we deal with situations that are complicated, ethics is not about what's right and wrong. Ethics is about choices and priorities between what's right and right or what's wrong and wrong. And that can be very tricky and messy and complicated and difficult. And it requires a mindset. That's why in my book, it's called Grappling with the Gray, because you're dealing with the gray areas. We're dealing with our gray matter.
There you go.
The idea is to train ourselves to have a mindset where we don't look at things in black and white. We're not saying it has to be either this way or that way, but rather let's work with the nuances and the complexity and see both sides. If you don't see both sides of an issue, you can't possibly get to anything that resembles an equitable solution.
Yeah.
And there has to be a willingness to compromise and to accept that people can't always get what they want and often don't. And when parties approach it with that mindset, it means we're working together to solve our problems in a way that is going to do the best it can for all of us together.
Yeah, I like that. I like working in the gray areas, because those gray areas will get you in trouble, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those gray
That's
areas
most
where
of life.
yeah, where you don't know. I don't know, so I'm just going to do it. It's a little gray, so I'm just going to.
And it means that I have an awareness of how my actions are impacting those around me. And I'm committed to taking responsibility for that.
Okay, so I got a question for you. You've written a lot of books. Have you ever had a book where you feature anybody in your books? Have you ever done any interviews you featured anybody in any of your books?
No, not in my books. I've been featured more than I feature. I've been doing the podcast circuit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been featured in some books. Okay. All right. I'm going to flip the question then. Whenever somebody reaches out to you to offer you a feature, hey, I want to feature you in my book or on my podcast or whatever, right? How do you feel? Does it make you feel pretty excited? Are you pretty willing to do it? Or do you resist those? Are you like a resistor to that?
No, I think that we are here for service. And service doesn't mean that we can't make a living. We have a service economy. But no, it's one of the great things that social media and particularly LinkedIn provides, is the opportunity to share our ideas and share our insights and provide wisdom for others. And if I can contribute to spreading positive wisdom that's going to help people in their businesses, their lives, I want to do that to the extent that I can.
Love it. Yeah, that's exactly right. So what you're saying is somebody reaches out to you, hey, Yonason, I'm writing a book right now. I'd love to feature you, your expertise, everything that you've been doing. I think it's amazing. I'd love to maybe grab 30 minutes of your time, if that'd be okay, so I can transcribe my notes and all that kind of stuff. You'd give them 30 minutes of your time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We were talking about this before we started recording, that the demands on our time are just endless.
Right.
Yes.
But there's a saying, if you want to get something done, ask somebody who has no time.
Okay, I like what you're saying. So if I went out and I said, hey, Yonason, can I just pick your brain? You laugh, right?
Yeah.
I just want to pick your brain.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I got a message today with somebody asking me, do you mentor?
Yeah.
And so what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And he told me, and I appreciated what he's looking for. And I said, we can schedule half an hour. He says, do you charge? I said, no, not for the first one.
So
because I've gotten where I've gotten because people were willing to reach out and help me.
I love that.
That is true.
The
And we
reason
want to pay it forward.
I love that too. He's got the spirit. I'm tying this all in a nice little bow, all right? In the last job resource management series, I taught a new strategy to the job seekers to basically become authors, to write a book, and to get their informational interviews, they need to reach out to employees at these companies that they want to work for and offer to feature them in the new book that they're writing, okay? Because if they offer a feature in their book, that person is way more likely to give them their time than if they just say, hey, I would like to pick your brain and learn about your company and learn about you and all that kind of stuff. Like, when you're being offered a feature, it's exciting. It actually raises the stakes a little bit. It's added value. What's the name of your new book? You just wrote one just came out, right?
Grappling with the Gray.
Grappling with the Gray.
I like
An
that.
ethical handbook for personal success and business prosperity.
Where do they go get that book? Where can they pick that thing up?
It's the best place is to go on my website because they can get an author discount there, which is my name. You've got it right up there, YonasonGoldson.com.
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.